that was a case study in the hybrid organisation research is a classic one, because they have taken their technology and adopted a very different way of working. So for 1,100 people, they slimmed down their real estate by 30%. They've got much less space, and inside the building is a very different world of work. It's a world where no one has telephones. There are no phones in the building. There's very little fixed technology at all. It's pure activity-based working. The idea that when you're in there, when you come into the space, you're there for a purpose. You're there for an activity. And therefore, the place is all about bespoke environments based on what you do, the task you want to perform. And the technology is driving, I think, different behaviours. We're seeing people truly working together and not being there for paper or equipment or kit. So activity-based working, I think, is just beginning. We're seeing the first global examples because they're being built on new technology, which we think will again begin to readdress the rules. And that technology is leading to this idea of a thin building. We think buildings in the future will have nothing inside them. No technology, no servers, no data, no software, no computers, certainly no telephones. There'll be a place for people to come together as everything migrates to the cloud. And the death of distance, the idea that you can connect data from distant locations, is very much what will drive this trend. What then follows is where people choose to work. When you are freed up to work anywhere, what part does the office play? What part does the home play? And are there new places in between? You heard from John DeLucy that 5,000 people come into the library now every day to work, right by Eurostar and so on. Are the future workplaces hybrid? Are they different? Do we begin to want different models for the future? But I'll give you a dilemma. You know, when Shell did a global study of over 100,000 of their people, Andy Boyd, who's head of knowledge management, said to me, actually, when you ask questions on web discussion forums, the best answers come from people you don't know inside Shell's global community. They come from people who are not in the building. They're elsewhere. They add the best value. So is a building about bringing people together? The contrary to that is a great new book by Stephen Johnson. And he's tracked innovation over 200 years. He's found that innovation does not come from that eureka moment in the shower. It comes from people working together and collaborating. He has a quote here that innovation springs out of what he calls the adjacent possible. And the most inventive places are hives of activity where people get together and share ideas. So what is the future? Is it about social networks that bring in people remotely, or is it about bringing people together to generate that creativity? So the networks we begin to live in are you're well aware of. I mean, Twitter with 105 million people is a staggering construct from nothing a few years ago. And when you begin to look at how people do connect and the networks they're forming, you can suddenly say, well, if that group is working together on a network, why not put them together physically to achieve what Stephen Johnson describes as the adjacent possible? Why not look at those real-time groups and get them to be adjacent? And therefore this takes us on to Jelly Bean working, the idea that actually the future of not shirking from home but working from home and other third places is all about the Jelly Bean. And the Jelly Bean is something that you'll begin to see. It's corporate presence taken to a new extreme. So here, and Dave can talk more about this, social networking begins to be integrated into Outlook. The Jelly Bean is here. The corporate presence icon, the little bubble that's green, orange, red, or begins to change colour based on real-time experiences. So here people co-authoring a document, working on a Word document together in real time. The Jelly Beans change colour as people are editing text together based on what they're doing, their state, and so on. And the Jelly Beans will become part of your daily life. They'll be everywhere. They'll be permeated through every kind of software that you choose to work on. The Jelly Bean will also be mobile. It'll be on your mobile device. You'll be able to kind of decide how you connect to somebody based on their real-time presence. And that Jelly Bean will permeate and follow you around and also become contextual. The Jelly Beans on display will change by what you're doing and who you might want to connect to. So we have this great theory that Jelly Bean working will really begin to change how people work. It will challenge the idea that middle management need to be supervising work, and it will lead to a much more fluid trust in people that they are able to work because you can see their Jelly Bean. You can see if they're available. It doesn't matter where they are, you know they're there and they're working. So to finish my short presentation, I'm delighted that Philip from Plantronics has shared with me, I think, a global first, Philip. So I'm launching a new video that Philip's just launched with a brand new product. So enjoy the last 2 or 3 minutes of where Plantronics will take the idea of Jelly Bean working.
Ian has a complicated life, but he manages to stay on top with simply smarter communications devices from Plantronics. Late yesterday, he was invited to meet the chief exec at one of his key target customers. Fantastic! Except the meeting's at 2 o'clock today. He's got to travel 60 miles battling traffic and weather conditions, collate some key facts from the office, and also prepare a winning presentation. He rings Lisa, his sales support expert, for some help. Totally hands-free with his next-generation Voyager Pro UC, Ian can take his office with him wherever he goes and get Lisa working for him. And with Plantronics presence detection, Ian can see when Lisa is away from her desk. Technology knows when you're wearing a Plantronics intelligent headset and how close you are to your devices, allowing you to make the decision about who can contact you, when, and in what ways. Lisa might decide not to take calls when she's away from her desk, or to only take them via her mobile, if she has that with her. Alternatively, she can decide to take calls when she's within meters of her mobile, no matter where she is. It's all about keeping things easy for the user. Lisa's showing as busy, so Ian tags her for a return call as soon as possible. And in the meantime, he can carry on being productive and also take other calls. And Lisa can also be available for calls with different presence settings for her personal contacts. That's smarter working and also smarter living. Lisa gets straight on the phone to Ian when she gets back to her desk, but Ian needs marketing sign-off. Lisa checks and can see that the marketing director is working from home today, but is available with his devices unified through a Plantronics Callisto 800 series. The marketing director willingly gives his approval, and Lisa sends an instant message to Ian. Meanwhile, Ian is working hard on his presentation and puts a quick call into his contacts at the company he's meeting so he can double-check a couple of final points. At last, everything's ready and the meeting's going really well. But halfway through, the chief exec asks about a detail that's absolutely crucial to him, and Ian doesn't have an answer. He's happy that he can get the answer quickly though, as he's backed up by real-time sales support. Lisa is able to find the information that answers the question and directly transfers some supporting documentation over to Ian while he is in the meeting. After looking through the information with the potential customer, Ian decides to bring Lisa into the meeting to provide further reassurance. By working closely with his office and using Plantronics technology to improve collaboration, Ian successfully closes the deal and takes home a new customer order. Stay on top of your home and work life with simply smarter communications devices from Plantronics.
Bit of a plug for Philip's new technology, but I think the principle there of Jelly Bean working is real. I think that we'll find that the Jelly Bean, the permeated presence, will begin to affect everyone's life and change the nature of management. And therefore people will no longer need to be supervised because you can be connected based on your Jelly Bean. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Philip. And now Dave.
Thank you. So, we've heard a lot about how the world is changing. We heard Michael talk about how society is changing, and we've heard Philip talk very eloquently about how not only the built environment's changing, but how technology is evolving too to support that. And if I could get my slides, I'll tell you about how technology is equally changing. So for us, technology in the hybrid organization was kind of a tale of two halves. There's the obvious stuff that you would expect from us and our colleagues in the technology industry about changes in how technology is being used and procured, and some of the real fundamental technology advances. And these things are great, right? These are really important. Things like natural user interfaces. Finally, we may see the death of the keyboard and the mouse. We've seen that being brought just this week, in fact it was last week, to mass market. Microsoft launched the Kinect gaming device. I don't know if many of you have seen those, but this is the completely controllerless experience that allows you to not just interact with your Xbox and play games, but equally as a communications hub. But all of this is based around a gesture-based, a natural user interface that allows any kind of individual to get on and use it. I stuck my five-year-old in front of it in the weekend, and straight away he's in there. So very natural ways of working. Similarly, we have technology working now, which is coming around developing and delivering displays everywhere. Any kind of device can be a display device. We've seen some of the examples. I think we've got some exhibitors today talk about mobile projection, but equally smart surfaces that allow interactivity with technology and sort of objects around it that change based on the context of what you're trying to do. In this example, we've got some reactive surfaces that look at the device that's being placed on there, see the context of the device and try to do things around that. And then finally, just as an example, and this is actually very close, we're seeing all sorts of examples of this come today. You may have seen this on some of your mobile devices, but this concept of augmented reality. So yes, I am in the real world, but there is also a digital overlay that can enrich my experience, enrich my understanding, that's probably based on my location. And all of these things come together to give us this huge sort of fundamental change in the way that we think about and use technology. But it doesn't just stop there. All of that stuff is kind of science fiction to us, the stuff that we've been seeing in movies for years. We're also spending a lot of time completely rethinking existing problems. Search is a great example. Search is no longer about who has the best algorithm. Search is about understanding the user intent. Search is about understanding that when you look up flights to San Francisco, that you're probably not looking after the history of flight or San Francisco itself, but you're probably trying to find a timetable or fares. So what we in the search industry are trying to do is to get behind that and provide you with a quicker way to make the decision that you're looking at. So again, this all technology comes together to change very much what we do. But the other part of the change that is probably more fundamental is how we think about technology ourselves, especially in the IT industry. So I'm going to do a little test. Could you put your hand up in the audience if you've got a computer at home? Okay, could you keep your hand up if that computer is better than the one you get at work? So it's faster, more recent software, better internet. That's like the majority of you. And what's really interesting is that we in the IT industry, we don't see that. We don't see that change that has quietly happened in the background. While we've been running around telling you how important technology is and how complicated it is, you've all been quite nicely getting on with technology, doing stuff in your personal lives. And it leads to a world where actually we care less about the complexity of technology, but because we just want it to work, it becomes a commodity in what we do. And the challenge for us, certainly in how we provision technology, but how we manage it, is we have this concept, we have people who spend their lives, their personal lives, using technology to great effect, making themselves incredibly productive and successful. They do things like maybe order stuff from Amazon, buy their groceries on Tesco, maybe communicate with their kids on Facebook or MSN Messenger, and then they go to work. Is that a familiar experience for anybody? And there are a number of compelling things here. What has happened? In IT, we used to be the guys that would help people. We would help you solve business problems. And now increasingly, I feel like if I've got a job in IT, I might as well have a job in security because all I do is say no. That's no good to anybody. And we forget that people are so good with technology and they've used it in their everyday lives that when they come to the work, they cross the threshold of the office, they revert back to this individual, the dumb user. Now, I've made this my personal career goal to dispel the myth of the dumb user because, frankly, it's a misnomer. It doesn't exist anymore. Even the most digitally excluded people, I will guarantee you, have some kind of technical interaction, be it through the red button on their TV set, be it through SMS texting. There is something there. And what we have to do is we have to fix two ends of the problem. The first problem, and we see this a lot in public sector, so probably if we have lots of people from the public sector in, but I see this a lot, where you walk into an organisation and you're trying to roll out some technology project, and it will be, oh, you can't do that here, we don't have people who get technology. And these will be the individuals who will sit in the organisation and they'll wear their ignorance of technology like a badge of honour. And you'll know the people I'm talking about, because they're the guys when you say, oh yeah, we need to do this, and they'll be like, but I don't know nothing about computers, me. I think in a modern society, in a world that Michael and Philip have just